giving you a voice,
making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
So if you watched our episode last month, we had discussions on where folks could be in the next 5 to 10 years. And it seemed like the future, as Tyler just put it in the script, is woke. And we're here to discuss the biggest announcement that we've gotten in a while from our expert panel. So if you missed it, here's a description of the changes. So Mike, do you want to talk to everybody about what great big changes have come our way?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, so I have a prop to demonstrate what's happening. Well, I can't really tear it, but yeah, the bag is gone in 2020, and first made it very clear that 2019 there are no changes to how things have been with regards to the bag, but in 2020 the bag is going away, and for one, could not be more excited for this change, and I think this was a long time coming. And I first just want to give huge props to Frank and the whole FRC team for putting together the proposal and then giving the board time to review it, and then the board for really coming through for the teams. And I really liked what they talked about in the broadcast. I think we may play a clip or two from it, but they really talked about how the whole purpose of this is for them to meet their goals with FIRST and to be more inclusive and accessible for all teams. And I think this is a big step forward in that regard. And it really brings FIRST robotics competition into the 21st century when you compare FIRST to other programs like FTC and VEX that don't have bags or a stop build day. So I think this is a really big step forward for our program, and I couldn't be more excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking back to before the bag was introduced, back in my day when I was in high school, back in the early 2000s, we didn't have a bag. We had to create our robot at the end of stop build. So then it evolved into the bag, and now we're seeing the bag is gone. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean, the reality is a lot of teams didn't really stop working on their robots after that 6 weeks was over. People had second robots, third robots, drive bases, withholding allowance. And some people just kind of broke the rules and didn't really bag their robot, which, it happened, unfortunately. And now at least that's not really an option anymore. So let's roll a clip from Frank on the past broadcast if Tyler's ready to do so. You good? Cool.
For the 2020 season, we will be retiring Stop Build Day.
Yes.
This means that the concept of Stop Build Day is going away. Teams will start working on their competition robot at kickoff, as they usually do within the constraints of the other rules around that. But there will be no set day in February where we say, you need to stop working on your competition robot and hide your competition robot away in a bag with a lockup form. That concept is going away.
In 2020.
In 2020.
For the 2020
In 2019.
season.
And we're going to
trying to take all the toys that make noise away from her. Ooh. All right, and there it is. So in a little bit, Tyler's going to be posting a straw poll to see what everybody's reaction to this is. I'm interested to see what the kind of overall consensus is. But Sonia and Scott, what are you guys feeling about this, especially you as a student? Like, what's your reaction to this? Oh, okay. Well, they're not here. So let's see.
Oh, no.
I like that we're all in weird places now, but while they're away. So Corsetto, looking at the kind of perspective of as a student, like if you were a student, I guess, with this happening, like, how do you think this is going to impact their experience? Because I know like when I would market this like to our sponsors and our schools, I would be like, we have 6 weeks to design, fabricate, and build a robot. And that one selling point was huge when we were talking to people. They're like, wow, like 6 weeks, you really have to manage your time. And that's kind of similar to how, you do project managing, in the workplace. So how do you think that's going to kind of impact how, a student's experience might be in FRC now?
For the 2020
Yeah, that's a really
season.
good question. I think the first thing to recognize is time management doesn't become any less of an issue now. And the way that we've been marketing it to students is we have a 16, 17-week build season from kickoff until championships. And all students on our team are aware of that. When I talk to people about the competition, I don't mention Stop Build Day at all. So it's already been a part of our vernacular for a while now. But when students in particular are thinking about how's this going to impact my team, what do I need to be thinking about? I think that the biggest thing is that the constraints are still there. You still have a limited amount of time, and you have to use your time wisely. I think there's been a lot of talk about, what about all the teams that are just going to wait until week 1, week 2, and then copy another robot? I mean, if you're a team that wasn't able to copy robots in the past, this doesn't change anything. Sure, you might be able to build some stuff and bring a box of parts with you to the event, but I doubt it's going to be successful unless you're already a team that's playing at that level and doing that level of iteration. So, my advice to teams really doesn't change when I think about the strategic design talk that I just gave again this past October at the Capital City Classic. I always suggest that teams build their drivetrain really early, get things done quickly, and that doesn't change with this development. You still need to have an accelerated schedule so that you can be ready for your first competition, because everything takes longer than you expect it to. So that'd be my message to especially students as they're reacting to this. Really, the increase from 6 weeks to 8 weeks or 9 weeks, it feels like, oh, that's ages and ages, but it's really not going to change a whole lot with regards to how quickly you need to work to be successful in this competition.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Yep. So back on, we have our wonderful friends from Appreciate. Glad to see that you were able to reconnect. So we were just discussing kind of like what will this change do to the student experience on FRC team. So what are your first reactions to this, I guess?
Pretty positive. I mean, the only downside that I can think of is the sort of mentor burnout, but no, we just go all through to April.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the reality of teams that are kind of working at this high level and trying to get the most out of every moment of their building competition season. So what about you as a student, Sonia? So what do you think, or what do you see happening, I guess, in 2020 for teams?
I think a lot of teams are going to be able to, it's going to level out the playing field a little bit and give teams who maybe aren't as fortunate to have the ability to continue working on their robot, which is going to be really great and kind of positive, very positive for those teams and just leveling the playing field.
Yeah, and I think in regards to the leveling the playing field, it's going to give, those younger or, under-resourced teams the opportunity to go and test their robot on a random night or weekend at a, team shop that may have a full field or a partial field. So I think it opens the door for that to happen rather than, in the district model, you only get X amount of time right before your competition to do that. Where now, pretty much fair game. You're going to be able to go ahead and test these things out. So where it could lead to some mentor burnout where you're just meeting every single day all the time, it could also kind of allow teams, I feel like, to restructure their scheduling. It could allow for, certain groups to meet more often or less often. I'm looking forward to that personally on our team, hoping we can dial back, but we'll see.
Yeah. One other thing it might lead to is now it potentially allows a team that wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to go to another team and help them out with things like autonomous, right? I mean, I think it can help more collaboration amongst local teams.
Yeah, I'm 100% in the same mindset, Scott. We've started a rookie team in FRC for the last couple of seasons. So we've had, every year we start one team in a different local town next to us. And in particular, this last year, we started a team in West Sacramento that really only met on Saturdays of each Saturday of build season, and they only met in our shop. So literally, they just kept their robot at our shop, and they would work on it every Saturday because that's the only time that their kids and their teacher were willing to put into it. And I'm looking forward to this change. They could still do that schedule, but now have another 4 weekends before the Sacramento Regional to allow them to build their robot more, write some autonomous codes that they just didn't have time for because of their tight constraints on their time. And then I'm really hoping that there's some people out there that are really hot on the idea that this is going to lead to more mentor burnout. But I just don't see the logical conclusion of that. If you had a 3-day build season versus a 3-month build season, the 3-month build season is going to lead to the ability to set a healthy schedule for you and your team, right? And I don't see any criteria that says, you have to keep meeting after when bag day was, or you can distribute your meetings out further. And I know personally in my personal life, if I could go down from 4 meetings to 3 meetings a week, I'm able to fit in more things for my life, and I don't have to put my life on pause for 6 weeks like we do right now because of the stop build day. So I'd encourage people that are on that train right now to think about how they could spread out their season and maybe not put more hours into it, but have more hours spread out over more months. And that allows them to keep a more normal life during the build season.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so we had a comment from Mechanical Green Eyes in the chat, and they said, I wonder how grades of the first students will be affected. Usually week 0 meant that most students will spend little to a little more time on homework. So I mean, as a former student, I think that this will open the door to, giving students more time. Like Mike was saying, I think that teams will be able to kind of restructure and have more time to themselves rather than just their teams. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, for sure. I know the build season for all students in first is such a action-packed time, and we kind of block off everything during those 6 weeks, and having the ability to spread out that time really benefits students, especially as we're going through high school, and being able to spread out the work that we do outside of robotics.
Mm-hmm.
I think going on time also potentially means no late nights, and lack of sleep, especially in concentrated times, doesn't do anything any good. Frankly, I'm looking forward to not getting overnight parking violations from the school.
I would agree with you. Living in the city of Boston, we're always looking to make sure that we don't, get parking tickets, especially on those late nights. So CDF Man wants to know, do you think this will make going to the championship events harder? Mike, what do you think?
Getting to the championship event harder or going to it harder? Going to the championship event, I'm not sure it's going to make that process trickier. I think Frank and Jamie were pretty clear that they didn't have the final answers with regards to how this is going to impact championship shipments and the logistics around getting your robot to the championship. I don't think it's going to make it more challenging in that regard, unless I don't see them completely eliminating the ability to dry and ship your robot. I think that's always going to be a factor. With regards to getting to the championship, I don't think this is a big impact to this. I think you're still going to have these competitive levels within FRC, and that's just a reality of the different resources that teams had. And First touched on this in their broadcast. But I think this allows every team, especially lower resource teams, to be able to do more within their team than they were able to do before. And that's really what I'm excited about. I'm excited to see what these teams are able to accomplish and meet their own goals better because they don't have a bag preventing them from doing so.
Right. So in regard to that, something that was mentioned was that international teams and teams from areas like Hawaii will have to create their robots weeks in advance and not get to work on it before champs. How is this fair to them, if at all?
I didn't want to keep talking, but I'll say that it's a challenge for teams in those regions. And I think it has been for a lot of reasons. And I think this is one aspect to that. I think there's teams that have figured out ways around it for at least regional events, being able to pack their robots into suitcases so they can take it on the plane so they don't have to pay the dryage. It's one way I've seen teams get around that. And maybe this is an opportunity for First to be a little bit more relaxed with the shipping options to the championship. If teams were allowed to bring their robots with them on hand, that could alleviate some of those concerns. But I think we'll have to wait and see how First reacts to that in particular concern. But I think that's a real concern for international teams. I think it's very valid.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. So I know one thing that's always been kind of a hot topic, especially in the New England district, is withholding allowance and bringing that type of stuff in and bringing additional parts to cheesecake robots. That was something that the inspectors were always on top of. Like, besides coming around and getting you to unlock your bag and get your robot out. So I'm kind of curious to see like what the next thing will be now that, you know, you have all the time in the world to work on your robot and you don't have to schlep in so much withholding allowance. Like what's the next thing going to be for volunteers to get really, like, I guess, tough on for teams in terms of the robot? So what are you guys kind of anticipating now that this like major facet is removed? Like, is there anything that you think is going to kind of be the next stressor that teams are going to want to either get rid of or add on in the FRC kind of process or experience?
I can't think of there being any additional, I mean, that was the only thing I could think of when you were walking into an event with your robot, that you were always under some suspicion, right? I mean,
yeah,
always being watched. That's just going to take some of that stress right out. Running in the pits, that's about it. We'll just be down to the basics.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take some Q&A real quick from the chat. I know we did a few, but let's see what else we have. So we did talk about elite teams. Tyler, do we have any other pressing questions that are a little different? Great, so Spectrum 3847 said, kickoff is the first Saturday in January. We start competing in March or end of February, and championship event is at the end of April. This is truthful and still impressive. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a question, but one thing that came to mind for me is, are they eventually going to start shifting back the event schedule? Because I know for you guys in Houston, or for Texas districts this year, or any kind of district area that's going to the Houston Championship, your schedule is crammed into what, 5 weeks of
Yep.
competition?
Yep.
That's a really small time frame to service a really huge like area of teams, especially just in Texas. But imagine, you know, if Mike's next dream comes true and California goes to districts, how are they going to be able to accommodate all of those teams competing, you know, before their Houston Championship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Texas is definitely going to be going through some teething pains this year, I think. You know, Michigan sent, you know, the district model is something we certainly look forward to. You know, our teacher, Coach Norm, is very much, you got to play and you get better. And this definitely will afford us that ability. But, you know, there is one huge difference, and that is we are a huge, like California, large geographical area. And so I think that's going to be the challenge for First in Texas is going to be the learning year. We're going to have to be patient and, you know, give them the opportunity to learn. You know, John Vanoon says, you know, it's iterative. You need to let them iterate. And I'm hoping that California is watching Texas really closely so that, you know, you guys will learn from First in Texas.
I hope so too.
All right, and we have a question from Foss JW. He said, play early or play late? What will most teams want? That's a great question. Mike, let's just, okay, we'll let Appreciate go first on this one, because I'm sure Mike has a lot to say about it too.
We're definitely early if we can. I mean,
yeah,
that's been our intent, is play early, give us a couple of weeks to iterate, and then, you know, come back at it for the next one.
Yeah, being able to go out there early and just test out what you have, and being able to iterate after that is what we find is our strategy.
Is that your strategy also for like awards too? Like, if you weren't concerned about the robot, I guess, like from the kind of like chairman's standpoint, or, you know, best marketing your team all around, what would you prefer? Starting early again and then kind of hopping back in later on?
We, of course, tried to go early for chairmans and other awards, but we want to continue to consist that behavior throughout the whole season, because it is the right thing to do. And we do that persistently throughout the season, but getting things early is better than getting things later.
I would definitely agree with you. And Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, so luckily more and more of FRC is going to the district model. So if I were to consult the Joe Schmo team about what to do, I would say get into a week 1 event. If you can get into a week 1 event, do it. Like Appreciate was saying, the earlier that you play, the more you're going to learn, and then the more time you have to iterate on those lessons learned before your next event. And now without a bag, that becomes even more of an opportunity to iterate, because you don't have this artificial barrier limiting your iteration potential. When we look about 1678, I think we follow that advice as well. There's nothing in me that thinks that our design process is going to be any better than it has been in the past. And the only reason we're able to design quality robots is by having many opportunities to fail, and fail faster is one of our main mottos. So being able to go to an early event, a week 1 event, and a week 2 event gives us an opportunity to learn the things we didn't know we need to learn. And so I don't see not having a bag as changing that. I would caution teams that think their best option is to wait and play like week 5 for their first event after they've like studied the field week 1 and 2, because they're not going to be able to pull a robot together in those 3 weeks. And I think, but I don't think your average team is thinking that. I think there's a lot of buzz around that right now. But I would encourage all teams to play early, and Districts allows you to play often, which is great, but play early and learn what you need to learn going into your later events. You're not going to know that stuff until you get onto the field. And like we said, the event is now the deadline. There's no stop build in 2020. So your first regional is your first deadline. I'd encourage you to try to get to that deadline as quickly as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And especially, I mean, like you were saying in the district model, like playing early is such a huge advantage because you get that real field experience. And then, for only $1,000 more, you can just keep tacking them on, maybe go to all 5 weeks worth of district events if you're crazy enough. If there's room, why not? And I think Tyler had a question for us as well. So Tyler, you want to come on and ask?
Yeah, something I just wanted to bring up is Gray Phantom Delta asked in chat, and I just kind of want to respond to this directly. How do you think it will affect reveal videos from high-end teams like 118? I'm going to tell you, from fun, I am terrified that we might not be able to do a premiere night nowadays, but with no stop build coming up, that's going to be interesting to see if teams are going to take the time to do a high-end reveal video or where they go from. And 2468, do you guys do a reveal video typically?
We did in the past. In fact, I remember getting a specific chiding from JVN once about we did ours, where's yours? But we haven't in the last couple of years because, well, we've been rushing to the bag and more planning or withholding.
So, Sonia, if you did have more time, do you think that would be possible, or do you think that you'd just be working on the robot more?
I think you're going to see the reveal video just before the first weeks, just before the first weekend of competition.
Yeah, no, I think we might be able to do a reveal video if we are able to, with the more time, schedule our time more wisely, and because of more time, we can. I'm not sure. We may be able to do one this year.
So, Sonia, do you also feel like that with the kind of extended time frame, your team will be able to kind of focus students more, not just on like going through the process of building the robot, but actually like documenting it and maybe learning more? Like, do you feel like the learning experience as a student will be heightened because there won't be necessarily like the rush to the bag? Because I've seen, like, I've experienced it and I've seen it where, mentors will like, it needs to get done. So sometimes, the mentor might have to push through and do a little more work than the student actually learning. So do you think this will open the door for that? Are they frozen?
Oh no, we lost our guests again.
Yeah.
So, I think this is gonna, like I said before, I think first did this change from an equity perspective, and I'm really thinking more about the 95% of teams rather than the top 5%. I think this is going to be huge as far as learning opportunities for those teams. And the other thing I wanted to bring up that's been talked a little bit about before is how much will FRC look like VEX with regards to the Clone Wars that VEX has? I think there's a couple of key differences that there's like two main knobs that I see is there's how much time do you have to make the change, And then how easy is it to make the change? And the difference between VEX and FRC is, one, VEX has a year-long build season, and they got the game in April, and they have World Championships the next April. So there's a lot of time to effectively clone robots. And then VEX is a smaller scale with a limited kit, and almost all the parts you need come in your basic kit or with expansion packs. So the ease of copying is turned way up for VEX, and the time you have is turned way up. And that makes it much easier to have clones. In FRC, even Tyler, to your concern, even if a reveal video comes out from 118, the end of February, there's only a month and a half before World Championships to copy it, and it's a 118 robot. That's incredibly difficult to clone. It's not just a kit that you have in your garage. And so I think a lot of those factors are going to lead to teams thinking they can pull off clones, but not being able to. So I think that's something to consider. 118 knows that the other top teams could copy any one of their ideas that's in the reveal video, but they still publish a reveal video. And I think it's a great thing because it shows off what the teams have accomplished, and it's super fun for the community. And I think you'll see most teams continue to have reveal videos that usually do reveal videos because they're so proud of their work. And this is one way they express that.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, obviously with VEX, it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot smaller scale. So I'm sure it's a lot more feasible. But I mean, the teams that you've seen that just completely iterate beyond their own design and their own kind of goals, like teams that completely reshift their strategy in the game one way or another, they're doing it. But by the time they've done it mid-season or even after week one, they're not going to be performing to the level that a team that, you know, developed a strategy and base their entire robot around it. It's never going to be at the same level. And we've seen that year after year after year. And personally, like if I were a student on a team, I don't know if I'd want my mentors to be basing my entire experience around doing that, you know, building a robot, knowing that, you know, after we see our first event or watch the webcast, we're going to go and completely based off of somebody else's ideas and strategy, go redesign our robot. I mean, it's one way of doing things, but it's not how I would want my experience as a student to be, and it's not the experience that I would want to give as a mentor. So I think that the getting rid of the bag will be a really good thing for teams in general, just to be able to kind of focus on their own concepts and their own strategy rather than feeling rushed into something like, you know, robot in 3 days strategy or, oh gosh, like we have to do this. I also think it'll give teams that are more experienced, like Appreciate was saying, to really go and mentor other teams instead of just doing like quick builds before week one starts. Like, okay, now you can have your second, you know, check-in build with those teams, the rookies and, you know, the under-resourced teams. You'll be able to go back and make sure that their strategy isn't just getting the robot to move. I think it'll really elevate kind of everybody's experience. Not like, I don't really necessarily care about the level of play. Like from the teacher standpoint, it's like, what can this change give the students a better experience with? So, and I think Sonia, before you dropped,
yeah.
Did you hear my question? I'm trying to remember exactly what it was.
It was something about the reveal video for the,
Oh yeah. Okay. So now I remember. Yes. So as a student, because I know like when it gets close to like bag day, it's like, oh my gosh, like this part has to get done. And like, we need to finish this. Do you think that with the bag being gone, it'll give students not only the time to like better document their process for like judge showcasing, but also like be able to kind of absorb and retain more skill sets in the kind of mentoring and building process?
I think so. And as was mentioned about mentoring other teams, just having the ability to have more time to do that. It's not just about, it's the experience that students get, helping other students and being able to have more time to showcase our build season and share our experiences really valuable. And I think it really enhances the students' experience on the team. So having more time to do that will be really beneficial for students who are in the program.
Yeah, and I think at least from like a standpoint of a student and a mentor, it'll be a better way to get younger or less experienced students or even mentors like just better in tune with what's going on. Because, you know, like fall programs are one thing, like we do FTC now, we've done VEX, you know, there's off seasons, but there's nothing as like real as the build season. And now that there is like, you know, this extended time, I think it'll really allow people who don't have the expertise like other people on the team to get in still and like get a deeper and better experience, I guess, within their subsystem. So
thank you to all of our co-executive producers, keeping fun loud, live, and independent. Pledge your support at patreon.com/first updates now.